Hello everyone, Double Z33 here, Zane Zeiter, and as you can see I still have a hat on because due to the coronavirus, barbershops are still closed here in Ohio where I am located. So today we are back with another album review. Today we are going to be doing one of my favorite bands, so I am going to be blabbing on here for a while probably because I love this band and I know a decent amount about them. So it'll be extensive. So the album we're doing today is Phoenix by Asia. And just look at that album artwork. Wish it was a little clearer so you could see it even better because it's just some great work. Of course, it doesn't do it justice here, but you can kind of see the colors there, but just tremendous colors on that Phoenix that Roger Dean did the artwork for. He did the artwork for a lot of Asia's albums, and he also did a lot of album covers for the bands Gentle Giant and Yes as well. So this is the 10th studio album by rock supergroup, and yes, I called them rock supergroup, not prog supergroup, because I consider Asia, like I do the band Styx, a rock group, because though they do have some prog songs, as far as I know by Styx, I don't know Styx catalog as extensively as I know Asia's, but I know Asia has a couple prog tunes here and there, but the majority of them, it's really pop rock for the most part. And Styx, they got a lot of variety. They're more of a hard rock band, I would say. Not as much melody, a little more blues here and there, especially on their earlier stuff and their later stuff, where Dennis DeYoung doesn't partake as much in the the vocal duty. So this album, so to talk about Asia here, the members of the band in Asia are on vocals, and this is why they're supergroup on vocals and bass. You have John Wetton, who was a part of Uriah Heep and King Crimson. On guitar, you have Steve Howe, who was in Yes. And drums, you have Carl Palmer from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And keyboards, you have Jeff Downs, who was in the Buggles before he started up with Asia. And interestingly, Jeff Downs is the only member on every single Asia album. So this album here marked the return of the original lineup of those four. So the last time that they were all four together for an album was all the way back on their second release, which was Alpha in 1982, I believe. And because, of course, they had 3/4 of the band together for their third album, Astra, in 85, but they had Crocus guitarist on that one. Mandy Miller, I believe, was his name. So, or it might be Mandy Mitchell. Let me see what it was. It was... Oh, I wasn't right either way. Miller or Mitchell, another M, last name Meyer. Mandy Meyer was the guitarist on the third album, Astra. So, continuing on here, wow, they did quite an album here. It is a long album, though. It's clocking in at 65 minutes. It was produced by the band Asia and also Steve Rispin. So let's get right into it here with the first song on the album, opening number. It is Never Again. It is one of their more familiar, uplifting tracks. They did it several times on this album, and then the next few albums that they would do with the original lineup all together on the next album, Omega, and then the next album, Triple X, which is the shirt that I have on here. I have the 35th anniversary tour Triple X shirt, and I will talk more about that here in a bit. So the best part of this song here is the backing vocals in the chorus because it's reminiscent of the backing vocals and the chorus that Heat the Moment. So that was really cool. Next song here is perhaps the worst Asia song ever made, actually. So this song has marching band horns, sound like marching band horns to me, in the intro and later on in the song. And like I said, it's awful. It's one of the most annoying Asia songs. I always love John's vocals, but I felt like they were actually insufferable here. So just to talk about John a little bit, rest in peace to him. Great vocalist and bass player. And so once back to the shirt here. So this shirt was from their 2017 tour. He didn't get to go on because he passed away from cancer. So it's a pretty cool shirt. It's got the tour dates here on the back as well. So one of my favorite shirts, no doubt. And Billy Sherwood filled in for vocals and bass, and he's still playing bass with the band now. Vocals now, though, are handled by Ron Bumblefoot Thal, who used to play guitar for Guns N' Roses during the Chinese Democracy era. And their voices are actually quite similar. Wetton has the better voice, in my opinion. It's got more range and emotion. There's just that emotion in Wetton's voice that nobody can really match. Of course, he doesn't have the range, and he's not as good a singer as a lot of singers. But you can definitely feel the emotion when he does his hooks or changes his register. So, and I'll also mention John Payne here when we're talking about the vocalist of the band. He's the one who filled in on the Asia albums in the 90s and the early 2000s. And from the albums Aqua up through Silent Nation. And those are all great albums. I believe there was 5 albums there, and they were all really good. I'll probably review them in the future, most likely. Of course, Payne had definitely a different voice, a lot more range to him than Wetton had. Number 3, we're getting to a great track here. Getting to the good stuff. So, what a track this is. This is Heroin number 3, and it opens up with a signature guitar from How, and it's actually Asia's probably the darkest song. It has beginning lines. He puts the razor blade up against his neck and contemplates life due to suicide, contemplates life due to depression. And throughout the song, he expounds on the reason how life turned out not as he planned, yet he carries on, and that's due to his woman, his heroine. Some of the lyrics here, next excerpt: she washes the torment from me, all that matters to me. So those are a couple portions of the song that are really touching and speak to me there. And so it's a very powerful song, and one of Wetton's best vocals, in my opinion, which of course is saying something with all he's done with Asia. And when I talk about Wetton's vocals, I'm talking exclusively about Asia. I know he did some Wetton's Downs material that I want to get into someday that I've always been wanting to. And then, of course, like I said, he was in King Crimson and Uriah Heep. And I didn't care for his stuff with King Crimson. That was just way off the wall. There's even some polka stuff thrown in with that. So that was just like, what the was that? And the stuff with Uriah Heep, I believe he did some vocals with them, but I've never actually really listened to Uriah Heep. So I don't know a whole lot about them. Besides, the first tour that my favorite band, Rush, ever did, they opened up for Uriah Heep. Not the first tour in the States that they did. They opened up for Uriah Heep. So next song we have here, number 4, is Sleeping Giant, No Way Back, and No Way Back, a reprise. This is an 8-minute prog tune, actually. This is the one prog tune on the track. I'm not a prog fan. It's not my cup of tea. There are some sick keyboards here by Downs in the beginning. It sounds like something out of a video game. There's harmonizing chants that lead into Wetton singing eventually. And next up, number 5 is going to be, this is going to get a string. This is going to get to our string of great songs in a row. It's going to be 4 amazing songs in a row here. 3 stellar, some of the best Asia songs, and then another really good one as well. So the first one, Alibis here. It is terrific, has catchy lyrics, it's emotional. The phrasings by ᴄᴏᴅᴇ곱, I enjoyed those. It's got a great keyboard sequence and one of Hal's best guitar solos, and it's amazing. So the drumming, I'll get into the drumming on this album throughout the video. I'll get more into detail with that later on, more in depth. So it finishes with one of Asia's most incredible moments here. It has a badass harpsichord of all things. So whoever came up with that arrangement, kudos to them. It is memorable, and it's one of my favorite parts of Asia, just that do 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 do. So that is just some great stuff. Gotta love the harpsichord. So number 6, my favorite track on this album, I Will Remember You. It is a fantastic ballad. It has some of my favorite Asia lyrics, just to mention some in the song here. I'm never free, wherever I go, whatever I do, I will remember you. Later it says, the fire will always survive, the embers are still alive. So, I mean, what it's about is being haunted by a past lover and one that you'll always love and always comes to mind. So, it's one of ᴄᴏᴅᴇ's best vocal performances, in my opinion. I know I say best a lot here. I am a huge Asia fan, as I mentioned, and this is one of their best albums. I mean, it's just got lots of killer tracks. I mean, 5 or 6 just outstanding ones on here. So it was a great comeback for them with this original lineup. 26 years, believe it or not, after their debut, or after their last go-round with each other there. So the song also includes some flute-sounding keyboards and a great distorted guitar solo by Hal. So now we go into another one of the album's standout tracks, Shadow of a Doubt. Great one. Number 8, and this is an unbelievable track here. My goodness. So this is almost as good as I Will Remember You, in my opinion. And so this rounds out the 4 straight phenomenal tracks. Not many albums can do that. Go 4 straight unbelievable tracks in a row. I mean, wow. Okay, so one of my favorite guitar solos by Asia is in this song here, and has some awesome guitar effects. And the guitar solo that finishes the song out is actually about 6 minutes long, so it's almost an instrumental, really, the majority of the song. It's 8 minutes long, and the last 6 minutes is instrumental. But the vocals at the beginning are great, too. And the solo, it's joined by keyboards and drumming and some acoustic guitar as well. And it's really got some cool lyrics. And let me say the whole title here for you. I just said Parallel Worlds. That's always what I call it. Parallel Worlds, Vortex Dea is the full title here. So once again, the lyrics are longing to be with someone that you're just infatuated by them, can't stop thinking about them, and there must be a way to be with them. There must be a parallel universe where you'll be together. You're just longing for them. So that's a great track there. Next up, number 9, song number 9 on the album. This is Wish I'd Known All Along. And wow. Not wow in a good way. This is one of the most bizarre songs from the ᴄᴏᴅᴇ years. It reminds me of ᴄᴏᴅᴇ곱 from Gravitas, if you're familiar with that song. It's very uneven and doesn't flow like ᴄᴏᴅᴇ곱 does. And the ᴄᴏᴅᴇ곱 lyrics are pretty stupid, but it's catchy as hell, and I really dig that song. I listen to it a lot. So despite all of that, the lyrics are good on this one, and there's a section at the end that is stripped down and it's acoustic, and I enjoyed that part. I wish the band would have went with that arrangement for this song instead of this uneven, off the wall, bizarre one that they went with. It's super uneven. So please, if you're a fan of Asia, if you haven't already seen it, look up VH1 Classic Asia Don't Cry Live on YouTube. It's a tantalizing, mesmerizing performance. It's just incredible. I mean, it's got an incredible performance by ᴄᴏᴅᴇ with his vocals, super emotional, and the mandolin. It's actually arranged with a mandolin in the acoustic performance. It's a mandolin by Howe, and wow, they need to do some. Of course, if they ever make another album, they need to do a song like that, an acoustic song with a mandolin, and hopefully Tall can somehow maybe get close to Wetton's emotion in his vocals. So next up we have Orchard of Minds, one of the few songs during the Wetton years that was not written by the band. It was written by Jeffrey Feynman and Daniel Percy. It's blah, nothing special. Next we have Over and Over. That's their attempt at all things a country song. So this is a pretty eclectic album. Perhaps one of their more eclectic albums. They're probably up there with, I'd say, Gravitas is almost as eclectic, and if you know their album Arena, that one's really eclectic. That one's got even some like Jamaican flair to it, reggae flair to it. So that's a really interesting song, really interesting album there, by the way. If you want to check that one out, if you haven't heard it, it's one of the ones that John Payne is on. So once again, this is an attempt at a country song, believe it or not. The instrumentation all sounds country. Steve Howe's guitar sounds like a steel guitar in some parts, and Wetton's voice is not tailored to country, so that's why it doesn't work for me. Closing track is An Extraordinary Life, another one of those uplifting, inspirational tunes that they do on this album and the next one after. So they close with probably their most optimistic, shiny, happy song of their career. It doesn't lift me up, though. It's a mediocre song. So, to get into Carl Palmer's drumming on the album a little bit more here. So, I mean, what is up with his drumming here? Just to get into detail here, what I'm talking about. So, there's not really any human element to his drumming here. I mean, it sounds like a drum machine in parts. There's no human touch to it. So it's definitely the worst mixing of drums out of any Asia album. It's reminiscent of Lars Ulrich's drumming on Death Magnetic, if you've heard that. As bad as that album was mixed in portions. I do love the album, but the mix is bad. And if you noticed, they don't even have a person who mixed the album, which is unheard of on the Death Magnetic album I'm speaking of. They don't have the person who mixed the album, which is unheard of because I've heard people say that the person who mixed it, they're too embarrassed to put their name on there because of how it turned out. So in parts there's, like I said, absolutely no human element. It sounds like a drum machine, for Christ's sakes. So that's one of the worst parts of the album. But it's a minor complaint. It's a nitpick by me. So it's not extremely noticeable. It's just a minor thing that I noticed. So for a rating on this, I'm going to go with a 4 out of 5. That's a 4 out of 5. And reasoning, good collection of songs. Solid collection. Some great songs, some of the best that Asia ever did. Nothing's Forever, like I said, is a disaster. Aside from that, there's a lot of standout tracks. I'll go through my favorite ones again here that stand out to me. Heroin, Alibis, I Will Remember You, Parallel Worlds. Best part of the album, in my opinion, are Wetton's emotional vocals, the lyrics, and that harpsichord. Oh man, that harpsichord is sick. You have to check out that harpsichord on, what song is that again? Alibis. Alibis is the one with the harpsichord to conclude the song, and it is amazing. There's a little Steve Howe guitar that goes in at the end too, the signature Howe flare guitar there. Great stuff. So that was just an ingenious arrangement to include that harpsichord. All right, so that wraps up Asia Phoenix. If you like my content, please subscribe. Ring my bell. Go to my Facebook page. Donate to my Patreon. Patreon is patreon.com/ZZ33. I'll have the link at the bottom. Facebook page, I'll have the link at the bottom as well. So comment here or comment on my Facebook page if you want to talk about this album. And if you have suggestions, any videos you'd like me to do, I'll let you know if I do anything like that. If I'm a fan of the album, I'll let you know. Fan of the band, I can do a discography ranking of a band if I'm a fan, or I can do album reviews if I'm a fan of the album as well. And that's everything. That concludes this album review. Thank you for watching. So long, everybody.